Well, Henshall here again for the Constitutional Crisis channel. This video is a follow-up to an earlier video that was done in mid-September called Meeting with Agents of the Attorney General's Office. And that involved an incident where I had a meeting at a neutral location and they came to me, which, as I said in the first video, never happens. I had two agents show up there, apparently at the request of the Attorney General of South Carolina, because I had sent documents back there indicating in fact, I was trying to file a writ of habeas corpus to free the South Carolina shooter, a.k.a. Dylan Roof. And they weren't too thrilled about that. And they apparently requested our Attorney General out here, Sacramento Shamla Harris, to investigate me and see what kind of a kook I was. Well, we had a nice meeting at a local library here for close to 3 hours, which I never anticipated going in. I figured 20, maybe 30 minutes, but it turned out to be almost 3 hours. And I did most of the talking, and I gave a tour de force performance, and I just blew them out. I mean, they shaking their heads when we leaving. They'd never seen anything like this. Just like I'm talking to you on the video here, that's what I did there. And I said, this is why I'm doing it, and I gave them chapter and verse what the law was. And both sides, by the way, at the end expressed regret, I hope theirs was true regret, that this session wasn't recorded. I would love to have this one recorded. And even at 2 hours and 45 minutes, once you started watching this, you'd probably not leave it until you finish it. It was that good. Well, subsequent to that, I wrote letters to Harris out here in Sacramento and the South Carolina Attorney General in Columbia, South Carolina, following up and asking, to get copies of the report that was submitted to both of them based on this meeting that we had had. Now, this is mid-September. As we're talking here, this is virtually mid-December now, so 3 months later. And I've not heard anything, which actually doesn't surprise me all that much. But my original concept was that the reason for the meeting was to find out whether I was the real deal or whether I was, some constitutional crackpot, and whether or not they wanted to file charges against me in South Carolina and have me extradited to Columbia for trial. Well, obviously that hasn't happened. Just as obviously, I don't think it's going to happen. And yes, I am going to be filing a writ on behalf of Dylan Roof. This one will be in the Supreme Court of the United States, based on my state versus territory issue. Because as I said in that earlier video and several other earlier videos, it's more important here to take care of business, and no matter what happened, if the court doesn't have jurisdiction, and I've said this before, that in earlier times, the judge threw out a murder charge in Montana, and the exact quote is that it is better that a murderer should go unwhipped of justice than that a court without jurisdiction should exercise it. You can look up the case. It's called Tully, T-U-L-L-Y, v. U.S. 140, Federal Reporter, page 899. And if you go to Google Scholar and type that in, it'll pop right up. And you can read it. It's a relatively short case. You'll see exactly this quote. And it was from the facts, and I've read more of it than I'm going to tell you here, but it looks like the Tully guy actually did do the murder, but he got away with it because the Montana State Supreme Court screwed up and reversed his conviction, thinking they did not have jurisdiction when they did. So when the federal judge threw the charges out, which was the right thing to do because they didn't have jurisdiction, he knows the guy's going to walk, because now going back in the state courts, guess what? You got double jeopardy there. Couldn't try him again. Literally got away with whatever it was he did. But it was the right decision, probably a very unpopular one. But when you hold a position of honor, profit, and trust in government like this judge did, sometimes you have to obey your oath of office and make rulings like that. I wish it was done a lot more commonly these days. That said, to get back to the situation at hand, I'm still waiting. 3 months later, I'm going to send another follow-up letter and ask them the same questions. And, do you have any further information that you need from me, or do you want to have another interview, or what have you, and follow up and just see what happens here. So, in any case, you can take a look at below to see some of the sites I'm going to have on this and what's going on here. And also, you can get some of my documents, send an inquiry to my email at ccaspari@live.com. That's caspari@live.com. I have documents and packets ready to go. You can use in traffic cases in particular, but criminal cases, eviction cases, across the board, and very reasonably priced. And you can set them back like what I've been doing. And like I said, at the current time, I'm 14-0 against these state bar attorneys without much in the way of opposition. And that, if nothing else, speaks to the poor quality of education they must be getting in these accredited law schools these days. I mean, my goodness, it's not even close. So that said, I'm happy to, receive comments, questions, inquiries, and that sort of thing. By the way, one quickie while I'm thinking about it, I just recently did get a comment from a viewer who noted that I had a habit, I call it a mannerism, and I do, of looking off to my left a bit when doing these videos. And he misunderstood that to be that I was reading from document to my left. And I fired back and said, no, that's not it at all. It's just a mannerism, because I know my material cold and I don't need much in the way of notes. I know it a cappella. What I hope I didn't do was to seem, haughty or standoffish or whatever. I didn't mean it in that way. I just meant to say that, I appreciate that you might think that that's what's going on, but it isn't. It just so happens that I know what I'm doing. Unlike any law school graduate you're going to come across. Good luck with that. Anyway, that said, I'll get back to you with further details about that if I hear from either of these attorney generals and or the new attorney general in Washington, D.C., Loretta Flyntz, because she's aware of the situation too. And we'll see what happens. Thank you.